Hello and welcome to Modern Alchemy, where we talk about alternative methods of being successful, how to be successful, how to get into the frequency of success. My name is Joe Jennings. I'm an ex-corporate executive. I am an entrepreneur now, coaching and helping other entrepreneurs transition out of their 9 to 5.
And I'm Christina Nichols. I'm an energy healer, also coming from the corporate world, who did all the things she was supposed to do, but could not find success. And now being in a more non-traditional role, I found that I've really broken free and figured it all out. So we're here to help, to teach, to share, to learn, to grow.
I love that. And there really is an interesting thing where if you think the blueprint that you're on is working, but it doesn't give you that feeling that you want, like I had this blueprint from my family, my uncles, my dad, and they were these successful corporate guys. And I actually resisted it till I was in my late 20s. I went out into the corporate world. I worked in corporate America for like 3 years. I quit, went back to bartending to figure it out. And then I have tinnitus. My ears ring really loud. And I essentially was like, well, I can't work in a fucking bar anymore. And so I went back to corporate America and just kind of slogged it out because that was like, okay, well, what else am I going to do? Got to get my shit together. But you reach an apex, and kind of like how you and I both reached that apex where, yeah, our lives were good on paper, but it was not a fulfilling existence. It was a very unfortunate existence. And actually, it really relates to what I want to talk about in this video, which is the science of the frequencies of emotions and how those can really impact your ability to allow success, to allow abundance, to allow love, whatever you're looking for to come into your life. So kind of, I don't know, like, what are your experiences with high vibration, low vibration, frequencies of emotions? Like, what are your thoughts on those types of things?
Well, I believe in all of it. I mean, I don't have to believe it. Science has proven it, but it definitely impacts life. So you've met somebody that has been a total curmudgeon, and sometimes it's easy to pick up on that grumpy attitude. I mean, have you ever been with somebody and they're so grumpy and you're in such a happy mood and you're trying to push your happiness onto them and they just don't want it? They want you to come and suck down to their low vibration. It's the worst.
And I've actually even been on the opposite side where you're in such a shit mood and someone's happy that it like pisses you off. You're like, stop being so, why are you so fucking happy, bro? Like, and that's the worst. It's especially when you're not aware. Now, if that ever happens, I'm like, oh, I'm being a bum. But I actually remember when I was a bartender, if I got 2 bad tips in a row, I would go, okay, that's feedback. I'm obviously acting like a turd or I'm in a bad mood here. And I would make sure to make an attitude adjustment or service adjustment or whatever it was. You get 1 bad tip, you're like, cool, isolated. 2 in a row, it's good feedback to make the switch. And now I don't get tips for serving drinks, but maybe just for a little shaking my shoulders on OnlyFans. Just kidding. But check the link in the description.
Just the
But so I want to talk about it, and this is interesting because you did say it was proven by science. So this dude, David Hawkins, he is a scientist. I believe he's still living. He's an epigenetic and genome scientist. And so he created this thing using applied kinesiology to muscle test people and figure out the frequency of certain emotions. I won't go too deep into the science. I'll link the study. But essentially, they were able to figure out that there are low vibration frequencies, and like the lowest is shame, 20 hertz, guilt, 30, all the way up to 700 to 1,000, which is considered enlightenment, where you were saying compassion. And really what I want to talk about, and it's something that I've been working on, is moving from the frequency of need, which is fear and anxiety, which is a low vibrational frequency, through neutrality, which is where you can start to then bring in a positive frequency of having, which would be, having is the frequency of joy, essentially. No, having would be the frequency of, I think, acceptance, maybe. I don't know. I know that gratitude is essentially joy, which is 540, which I thought would be the highest level frequency, but peace and enlightenment are above that. And that's like pure detachment, I think, when you realize you never needed it all along, the things you thought would make you happy.
It is detachment. That's exactly it. Because you can be grateful and still so attached. But when you're at peace with anything and you're just okay with it and you don't care what the outcome is, that's more than gratitude.
That's amazing. I was listening to this audiobook, Happy Pocket Full of Money. It's about quantum physics and money. And this blew my mind. everything that brings you joy also brings you equal amounts of sadness if you kind of pull back from that. So let's say you're dating someone, they bring you joy, but then when you break up, it brings you sadness. You get a new car, but you get in a car accident, like then you're sad. Or how long does that happiness last? So then it's like the absence of it being a new car that makes you sad or complacent or want a new car. So all of these external things that we think will bring us joy, because they do bring us joy, equally will eventually bring us sadness in one way, shape, or form.
That's so interesting. I've never thought about the totality of it. Coming in so happy and then exiting potentially sad. I guess it's like life also. Born and death, night and dark. There is so much balance, the yin and the yang of it all. To think that we don't have one without the other is crazy. I mean, you can't have happiness without sadness. If you don't know happy, then you don't know sad.
It's these points where you're like, if you're on a grind to get to a place, that it's funny when people look back and they're like, those were the best times. When you're in it, you're like, this sucks. But that gives you the polar of, oh, wow, I do know it feels good because now I've made it and I'm out of the yuck. But the big thing is, you can't have a thing until you're able to vibrate on the frequency of having it already. You can like I pushed through a lot of, especially when I was in corporate America and had, made a lot of money, but I was always pretty miserable. And so it was so fucking hard for me to slog it to the top, not in terms of my ability to get there, but in my mental state was just shit the whole time because it was very unfulfilling for me. And I realized that once I got there, because I still had the same limiting beliefs, I was still a low vibration person essentially. Then I was just afraid. So I no longer needed the thing. I just moved into fear of losing the thing. So maybe I moved, actually, I think that's even lower than, let me look at this again. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on
just kind of like not fixing the mental state or your vibration and then eventually having the thing, but then just being afraid of losing the thing.
Yeah, you hear about people that are really successful and they're still miserable. It's because you haven't fixed what the actual problem is. You thought you were looking outside of yourself for external validation and whatever the thing is. Let's say I want to start a successful business. Become a millionaire, and then you're still miserable. It's because you didn't deal with whatever the problem is. You were chasing something else, looking for that to validate, increase your emotional frequency. And then when you realize it doesn't, it's still you looking back at you. Have you ever heard of that saying?
Dude, and it literally nailed it. So the fear is the place of needing. So I'm like, okay, well, I need this amount of money and then I'll finally be able to feel comfortable and safe and happy. And then when I got the amount of money, the fear was still there. But then instead of saying I need the money to be happy, was I need to not lose the money to be happy. So I literally just stayed in this turd dump fear state for so long. And what's really interesting is desire is only slightly higher than that, but it's on the line of moving towards what I would call neutrality, which is where you're like, whatever. Like you're not at what I like to call good with or without it. You're just not negatively charged by the desire that you once had. It's baseline. Then you move into acceptance, which is 350 hertz. And that's where you go, you know what? I'm good either way. You're not like super stoked, but you're in a much higher vibration where you can take it or leave it.
I would say most people don't even know necessarily what baseline is. We also have to consider our external factors. I heard a podcast this morning, actually, and in the podcast, they were talking about different generations and how an older generation may say, the new generation, they don't do things right. They don't do things like this, that, the other, which is...
I say shit like that all the time, and I'm like, I'm my fucking parents now.
Yeah, boomer. But what are the external forces around it? Because our parents' generation didn't have consumerism like we do. They didn't have a million items on Amazon for $20 and you can have them all in 4 hours or less. And they didn't have social media. They didn't have a lot of things, right? So what are the external factors around this that are contributing to the emotions of where you're at, and why can't you figure out what baseline is? There could be a million answers to this question.
Yeah.
But I just mean to say that because of this idea of baseline and people not knowing what baseline is, I don't think they actually know where they fit in terms of their attitude and their emotional frequency.
Yeah, they might. like people may not even realize that they're vibrating at a low frequency. Once I started to get into this stuff, there are areas where I'm neutral. There are areas where I'm acceptance, gratitude a few, but I'm looking overall and I'm like, oh, you're like low on the range, homie. Like you got to do some work. And it really, the thing that it blew my mind when I was reading into this topic, and this isn't woo woo, this is actually scientists. I'll link some of the studies below, but the original study was doing this applied kinesiology, which you may or may not think has like a ton of credibility. It is an actual science, kinesiology. We know that. But then they went on to even compare the actual frequencies and how that would resonate in terms of science stuff. So look at the link below. But the biggest thing for me was like, how do we shift into this feeling of having so that we can have more? Because until we move into that place, there's no way to actually easily get what we want.
Could you maybe read the level from the bottom to baseline and then from baseline up to the top so we have a base of reference?
Yeah. And I'm going to drop this. There'll be a link to this also. It's called the Map of Consciousness Levels from David R. Hawkins. And it starts with shame at the bottom, guilt, apathy, grief. Those are the lowest levels. Then you start moving up a little, fear, desire, anger, pride, like mid-low. Now you move into courage, 200, neutrality, 250, willingness, acceptance, reason. That's like the mid-range. Then you move into love. Love is the beginning of the really good frequency. So that's a 500. Joy, that's gratitude also. Peace, which, I mean, shit, have you ever been fully at peace in your life? I don't know that I've ever been fully at peace.
I kind of feel that now.
Really? That's incredible, dude. I've had moments of it, like after doing a baller like gateway process meditation or something where I'm like, it all makes sense. It like clicks. Enlightenment.
We're not there.
I don't know that enlightenment's my goal, but maybe it should be because that's probably a really fun place to be.
I don't know if that is capable for most humans on Earth.
Do you think people that aren't
okay?
Do you think people that aren't like meditating 12 hours a day and monking it out can reach enlightenment through the what I would call regular means of humaning?
Yes, I'm sure you've heard these studies. People that live in third world countries, they have a much more simpler life. They're much happier than we are. And we would think, what do you mean? Why would you think we're not happy? We have all this stuff. We have all these things. But their lives are so simple that they don't have to worry about as much. And so I could see someone with a more simple life that they would have more enlightenment.
Yeah, and it's the whole you don't own your possessions, they own you. There's less competition in a society like that. It's everyone has a job, they know what to do. They don't need to compare because everyone's just baseline, whatever their baseline is.
I've heard America be referred to as third world country with a Gucci bag or a Gucci belt. Excuse me. Gucci belt was the term.
It is definitely, I think, speaks to the archaic thought natures of a lot of our things or maybe policies. Yeah.
Yes. So to that.
And so what I really want to talk about is moving from need to want to neutral to good with or without to gratitude. And so that's going from fear to pride to neutral to acceptance to joy. And I think being in a state of joy or gratitude, and I didn't know that those were the same frequency, but apparently that they are according to this test. So if you're feeling joy, that is equivalent and that will also bring more things. Do you think like it's so frequency specific or is it like feeling specific? Like if I'm at, so that's 540 hertz, not to be like you have to vibrate at that frequency, but if I feel joy, can I get more things that I'm grateful for? Or is it better to be grateful? Like, is it feeling specific? Is it hertz specific? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, we know from quantum physics that everything vibrates at a different frequency. So I'd almost argue to say that they're the same. They're one and the same.
So you can, as long as you feel joy or gratitude, you will attract more things to bring more joy or gratitude, yes, irregardless of the word you use to describe your feeling.
Yes. And I think it might be like fishing where you are joy. So you throw it out there and maybe you want a very specific thing to come back to you. I don't know if you can at that frequency manifest the thing that you're specifically looking for as opposed to going fishing and then you just see what you catch in terms of something else that matches that joy frequency. I think you'd probably have to go higher in that list to really hone in on the thing that you want. Maybe there'd be more action behind it.
Can you get a specific thing? Or a lot of the teachings say you don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to make you happier or more grateful than you could have imagined because you just can't conceptualize it? Or do you think you can manifest like this specific thing and this specific color or whatever?
Yeah, I think any of that's possible. So let's simplify this. Someone has a vision board, and on the vision board, they have a picture of a white house and a picket fence, and that's the house that they want. And maybe one day they get that house, they get the exact house that was on their vision board. They may say they've manifested that, or maybe it's a goal that they've had while trying to manifest other things. I think that's subjective. I don't know. Maybe some people can manifest exactly what they want. I don't know if there's a yes or no answer to that.
That makes sense. I mean, I think a lot of it too is the reticular activation system, or you're subconsciously conscious of things. So maybe you do attract a specific thing unconsciously. And so what I'm currently working on is moving out of this need to want to neutral, which we call baseline. And so from your perspective, how do people move from these lower vibrational states where they're essentially repelling what they want? So best example is when you're trying to date someone and you're obsessed with them, they find it unattractive. Whereas when you're like laissez-faire, you're like, I don't really care, you become more attractive. And so how do I move from this repelling to this not even necessarily being attractive, but just being neutral?
Sometimes when people ask for answers, they want something very specific. And I'm going to give a very specific answer, and they don't like this specific answer because it doesn't fit into the idea of what they think the answer is supposed to be. So, example, how do you lose weight? Well, you move your body, you eat less, or you eat healthier. Very simple for most people, majority of people, right? People don't want to hear that. So my answer here is going to be one of those answers. I imagined it was like the Orbit commercial where ding. Anyway. You worry about you. You focus on you. This all needs to be internal reflection. How do you feel about yourself as a person? How are you operating through the day? How do you think about yourself? How do you present yourself? Are you proud of who you are? And I don't mean proud in terms of boastful and I'm going to brag and I'm going to just prove to everyone that I'm this great person. Do you personally really like yourself? Are you okay being quiet in your mind? Are you okay with your own thoughts? A lot of people can't even have quiet. They are very uncomfortable around the silence because they don't want to be alone with their own thoughts.
Yep.
If you don't want to be alone with your own thoughts, why do you think I want to be alone with your thoughts?
So you're saying essentially this low vibrational place of desire, need, want is coming from I believe if I have this thing, then I'll be okay. Then I'll be whole.
Back to the external validation. And that is why peace is why peace is so high on that scale, because you're just accepting it is what it is.
You're just so zen. Like, I'm good.
I'm good. And maybe life isn't good right now. So here's the thing.
Yeah.
Is life doesn't have to be good for you to be good.
I was just going to say that, like, chaos. You're good either way. Like, that's the ultimate, like, doesn't matter. Like, it literally doesn't matter because, like, it's not good with or without. It's like, no matter what, I'm good.
Yeah. Like, I like who I am. I like being alone by myself. I like being around other people, of course, but I'm okay by myself. I'm okay with my own thoughts. I feel confident in who I am. I have insecurities and there's things I don't like about myself, of course. But in the totality, if we would take the average of how I feel about myself, I'm really proud of who I am and how I've grown and how I show up in the world. And I think that is apparent when people meet me and they're very drawn to me. And I think they can see and feel that in me. Whereas someone who isn't confident in who they are, as opposed to liking themselves, not just external confidence or pretending to be confident, people that don't actually like themselves, you can see that life isn't easy for them. People don't want to necessarily have relationships with them. They don't know how to make girlfriends or boyfriends. They don't know how to keep relationships. They work so hard and then they wonder why they fall short. And it's external validation that they're all looking at as opposed to working on themselves.
The biggest thing, and you absolutely nailed it on the head, was I had this weird relationship with money my whole life. So my grandparents were well off and my mom was a single mom. So we were, for all intents and purposes, poor. We were poor people. But I saw the juxtaposition of the two lifestyles. And then my grandparents would make sure my needs were taken care of. So I'm seeing, well, this is way better and this sucks. And so that was like the entire genesis of my money relationship started with this clear juxtaposition of this life sucks, this life's better. I have to get to this life. So then I believe just having that hole there constantly, it doesn't ever get filled if you don't change the internal. Because I got to a point where I had all the toys, I had this pretty young fiance, like on paper it was like perfect, but I was so fucking miserable, dude. And I wonder, had I fixed that frequency, had I fixed that internal state, would I maybe have enjoyed doing that? I don't think I would have, because I think what I was doing just made me unhappy to begin with. But I definitely wouldn't have gone down that route. I would have believed in myself, because I believed that I needed money and status. And then I could be confident, and then people will like me. And it worked. I mean, I did all the external shit and it made me feel better for a period. And then he just hit a head where I was like, I'm so fucking empty, man.
Yeah, Band-Aid.
It was a Band-Aid. It was a very long-term Band-Aid, I'll say that. But then it was like, okay, I'm about to trade my soul forever if I go one more ring up on the corporate ladder. And that's when the house of cards just started to fucking crumble. But then I was afraid, like, I've worked so hard, I did all this work, but it's because I didn't do the internal work, man. And that was the biggest revelation for me. And now it's going, okay, so we're entrepreneurs. And in the beginning of an entrepreneurial status or an entrepreneurial pursuit, if you're an entrepreneur, you know this, or you're someone who wants to be an entrepreneur, zero external validation. Mine, zero, like less than zero. Okay. Like if you're on TikTok, maybe you get like 300 views, and that's a good day for a new TikToker, right? So learning to internally validate based on achievement for my work, my
effort
had been a thing I had to rewire. And then celebrating and being grateful for things that are little, even though my goal is big. Whereas before it was like, cool, okay, well, I'm not there yet, so good. I knocked out one more milestone. Anyway, back to being miserable about not where I am, right? Like, okay, cool, I got the promotion, cool, one more away, and then I'll finally be happy. Yeah, and so that's been a huge shift for me, is learning to be internally validated. So I know you're really good with that concept. And so how do people shift from this frame of, I need external validation to, I can internally validate myself?
This is where I think a lot of those manifestation techniques start to creep in. So this idea of faking it till you make it with your mindset, it really does work. It's not the long-term solution, but it will get you where you need to go and help bridge the gap. So when I said before, if you're faking confidence versus being confident, it could be a thing that you do in the interim. But if you only fake it and you don't do the internal work, like it's just going to be that Band-Aid again. But if you do the internal work and you're faking it, now things are moving and grooving, right? Currently, I'm doing a cut. I'm trying to lose 10 pounds before summer, and I'm down almost 4 pounds. And I was thinking about my approach and how I was going to do this. So I could have either done the cut like I'm doing, where I'm counting all my macros, or I could start operating like someone who is 10 pounds less. And maybe that means I'm moving my body more and I'm eating less. And the long term of it all, if we take the average of all the days that I'm doing my best to operate like somebody who's 10 pounds less, I, in theory, could lose 10 pounds potentially. Does that make sense?
It's
not the best example.
No, that's such a good analogy for people to use, because it's so relatable, and it's visually relatable too, whereas a lot of the stuff is ethereal. If you started living your life as a person who was 10 pounds lighter, you would be at the 10 pounds lighter maintenance calories. You'd be at the 10 pounds lighter maintenance workouts. And maybe you don't lose weight as fast as going on like a crazy caloric restriction, but eventually you become the person that's 10 pounds lighter when you live the lifestyle of the person that's 10 pounds lighter.
Yeah. And I think workouts, this is where it really translates a little clearer to me almost. So if you are supposed to work, you tell yourself, I'm going to work out 7 days a week, but you haven't been working out at all, that is going to be too much. You're not going to want to do it. You're not going to change that habit so quickly. But you might say, okay, someone that is 10 pounds lighter, maybe they work out 3 to 4 days a week. And that's an average per week. So maybe this week was really crazy at work. I couldn't do it. I could only work out 2 days, but next week I'm going to work out 5 days. What is something that is malleable, that's getting you towards the goal, that isn't so restrictive? And so our thoughts are the same thing. I try to be in charge of my thoughts all day, and it's impossible for me. I can only do my best, which I'm always trying to do. And maybe my best isn't good some days. Maybe my best is 30 out of 100, and that's just all I can give is the 30%.
That's like a super sick batting record, though. And it's like 30% is probably really good for that, too, considering how many thoughts you have that we don't notice.
Yeah. So if you're going long term of it all, then you can start to shift things. So if you say, I'm just going to do my best and try and be aware of my thoughts every day and where they're at and how I'm treating myself, then you start to move closer to someone who actually is aware of their thoughts, because it becomes easier. It's just muscle memory, essentially, is what you're trying to do. And so if you're trying to get your vibration to a different status, or if you're even just trying to get to baseline and neutral, what you need to do is get yourself in the mindset and shift either externally or internally things around you to get you to whatever baseline is.
Yeah, it's that concept of act as if, which can be done physically and mentally. I do believe the mental part is the most important. But think about if you've ever like dressed up for Halloween or, you know, did a play or something. Physically getting in character can help your mind. So going to the gym can help you feel like a fit person. Wearing clothes that you think your rich ideal self would wear can make you feel like your rich ideal self. So the physical definitely plays a part in it and can help you get in character. I think it's like that hybrid model you're kind of talking about. One thing I wanted to ask you is I'm unbelievably impatient. And because I'm someone who on paper was very successful, and now that I'm trying it in a new arena that I've never done before, the success, I forgot how like much time had evolved from when I first slogged it out in a certain arena. And now I'm like, this needs to get here way fucking faster. What's
You're
that
just repelling
process?
it. You're pushing it away.
So yeah, how do you get cozy with the?
You have to.
You just gotta give time, but like, how do you get cozy with that?
You have to stop controlling. This is not your dime. The universe is not operating on your dime. It does not revolve around you, even though we like to think it does, but it doesn't. And if you can relinquish the control on that and allow, things will speed in. This is just a lesson on you being impatient. It's a lesson on patience. My mom used to always say that, don't pray for patience because God has a sense of humor.
Yeah, if you want patience, you will get. It's the whole like, if you want to be brave, God will send you something to be afraid of. But it's in a nice way, right? Like, if you want to be great, God will give you a great challenge.
Yes. So I would say, number one thing, why are you rushing it? Why can't you enjoy this? Why can't you just enjoy this? If especially, let's reflect on what you said earlier. You said when people that are really successful look back, they say the beginning was the best time. So you're trying to essentially rush the best time.
Do you think it's the best time though, or is that this hyperfixation on the hustle culture struggle mindset? Or do you think unanimously, since almost everyone does look back and go, that was a good time, it actually is a good time in retrospect?
I don't have the answer because I haven't been on the other side.
Well, maybe in other arenas, but not on this arena.
If I'm going to do a case study, I would say most people are telling you this.
So it's probably true. Okay, yeah, that's mental.
But if you're going to rush through this, then you're just going to rush through everything. So we only, let's say on average, we have 70 years to live on this life. So if I had a little countdown clock in the corner, you might look and say, oh, I only have this many hours left. I need to really enjoy this. We lose sight of that, which I don't think we should be fear mongering and paying attention to how much time we have left on the earth. We should just be living. I'm just saying this because we should be enjoying all parts and aspects of it. And if you really don't like it, that is an emotional trigger. And you know what that tells me? That's where you need to work on.
Patience.
You need to understand why you're so impatient. You can't just enjoy this moment.
Yeah, I've always been that kid who was, okay, I don't know. Okay, let me just back to remembering the kid stuff. Okay, cool. Then I'll be in kindergarten. Oh, cool. Then I'll be in first grade. Okay, cool. Then I'll be in middle school. Cool. Then I'll be in high school. Cool. Then I'll be driving. Then I'll be 18.
Yeah, little kids always want to be an adult. I'm not a baby anymore. And then what do parents say? You should enjoy this because one day you're going to have bills and you're going to have responsibilities. You should enjoy being a kid.
So
kids
true.
are like, I want to be an adult. I want to go do things. Why can't we just be happy with where we're at?
Yeah, it is a good. I literally, I'm almost like feel like I'm in therapy right now because that's not something I've ever thought to work on. Right now, I'm working on my mindset around money, but I actually think that is a problem upstream of that because it's my impatience that is making me feel like I need to get quicker on increasing my level of financial abundance. But like, I'm fine. But for whatever reason, yeah.
Yeah. Are you fine or are you greedy? I'm not saying that you are
No,
greedy.
no,
I'm just trying to be
definitely,
thought provoking.
yeah, no, yeah. I'm like, the hole is unfillable.
Yeah. And quite honestly, one thing usually leads into the other thing. So your money issues or whatever your consideration is around money probably has something to do with the impatience. You know, it probably all stems from the same tree.
Yeah, I love that. So if you were me, and let's say those are two problems that I'm currently working through, is my mindset on attracting more wealth, and then I'm also unbelievably impatient, which is, I think, what's bringing in a lot of the anguish. Would you tackle one before the other?
I would tell you that those are not your actual problems.
Really?
I think you're not comfortable in where you are in life right now, and you're looking
That's fact.
for
Yeah.
something else. So
Yeah.
you need to find a way to get comfortable today
Get comfortable
with your day to day right now.
So I think it really just comes back to that external validation. I had so many things externally validating me that were giving me status. Status was, I think that's really what it was, is I had all this status on paper.
You're important.
I was important. I loved feeling important. I'm not as interested in feeling important now, but I do remember drawing a great sense of confidence from my level of importance. Like I'd be like, well, yeah, you know, I have 400 employees, so it's kind of crazy. Like, humble brag, like that gave me a lot of like personal clout.
Yeah, I see this often in most people, and people love to remind you of their accomplishments because it does make them feel important.
Yeah.
And they're looking for the validation. It's like that thing, if you donate a bunch of money, don't tell anybody. Do you still donate the money? Like, does it still count if you don't tell
I would
anybody?
100% tell people. My mom had a friend. Sorry, finish your thought.
I give money away all the time. I don't know.
What were you saying before?
Oh, I was saying I give money away all the time and I wouldn't tell anybody.
Oh, really?
Oh my God, yeah. Constantly give my money away.
Yeah, I like want a plaque, like for sure. My parents have a friend, or like a family friend. Like they've been since I was friends with their kids when they were kids and all that stuff. And they give money anonymously.
Yeah.
Which I remember I was a kid and we were at this big event, and I don't know, my mom or someone was like, yeah, they donated a bunch of money anonymously. And I was like, why would you do that? I was like, I want my name on the fucking board up there, bro. The Jennings family. Like they were and it was not a small amount. It was like, they would have been one of the like platinum or gold level sponsors. I blew my fucking mind, honestly.
Yeah, if it was something like that, I almost find that embarrassing to have your name up there.
Like, look at me and how good I am donating money.
It feels cringy.
Okay.
Well, let's say someone's doing a race and I donate $50 or something. I will put my name just so they know I contributed towards their thing.
Like I'm supporting you.
I'm supporting you.
Yeah.
Yes. But if it was something significant, I feel like, I don't know if I'd want my name on there, but I also don't like a lot of attention on me. And that makes me uncomfortable because I don't need the attention. I don't need that validation from people.
It's so weird as I don't like being the center of attention, but I like being worshipped from afar. What the fuck is that?
Well, you're keeping people at arm distance so they don't have to actually get to know you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, the center of attention thing is weird for me, but I want people to like look from across the street and be like,
look, he's
doing
so
it.
Good.
He's doing it so good. He figured it out.
Yeah.
Which is such a level of vanity, bro. And that's why I'm like, I got to have a nice car and like have a nice body. And, you know, like the girl I did, wish her nothing but the best, was like, she was 15 years younger, all legal on the up and up, mind you. But like, that was all part of this persona where I was like, look at me, I got it together. I'm crushing it. Hundo ego.
I would never want to date somebody 15 years younger than me.
Well, it'd be a dude 15 years younger would be like a transmorphic blob human. They would be like,
also, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I think.
Have you ever dated a guy younger?
Slightly younger, but not younger.
But like basically the same age.
Yeah, I would say acceptable.
Yeah.
And I'm not against it. I don't know. I feel like such an old soul, you know. I need somebody that can keep up with me in terms of mind. Ego, men have egos. This is reality. So there's another part of this too that I don't think we've explored, is you have the feminine and the masculine. So I'm hyper feminine and you're hyper masculine. Not because we try to be.
For our 3 watchers, check that flex out.
Yeah, I don't think because we're trying to. Innately, you are masculine and I am feminine. And masculine energy, if you are masculine, you are going to have a bit more ego. And I'm so feminine. This is where the compassion and like the sweetness and the softness and the mothering comes in for me. It just is very natural. I don't have to think about it. It's just who I am. And being masculine is just who you are. So there is a grain of salt, I think, with all of this that we can throw in the pot. And as a masculine male, you're going to have a larger ego. It just depends on how you feed the ego and how the ego drives your behavior moving forward.
How do you, yeah, no, and you're right. And my ego I've definitely chilled it a sconce, but it's definitely, and it's, now that you're saying that, like, I haven't even thought about my ego in a hot minute. Like, it feels like these are normal thoughts that I have, but that is that part of me that comes from this juiced up testosterone place where I'm like, I have to be this top tier provider in order to have value. Like, well, how do you integrate that? Because I don't want to. I think that desire for generating the goal is valuable, but it doesn't really provide any value once the goal has already been identified.
Give me a bit more here.
Yeah. So my ego makes me go, I want to have a lifestyle that is admirable, and then I generate a goal to have this lifestyle and accomplish X. That's when the ego's job is like done. And then you go into like work mode or attraction mode. And the ego is the impatient part. The ego is the part that wants to punch through a wall to get there. And that's really not a viable way to do something and be happy.
But so what was the question?
Yeah. So it's how do you, once the ego's job of essentially generating the desire, which generates the goal, is done, how do you get the ego to just kind of take a seat in the back?
Well, you can't because the ego's generated this all. This is all ego driven. So if you're driving from ego, if ego's got the bus, ego's driving the bus. He's opening the door. He's like, get on in, losers. We're going. I'm in charge. And you're like, okay, little minion. I'm just going to keep doing whatever the ego tells me to do. And so you're just on the ego bus.
So even if you
need to get off at the next stop.
So the idea can't be ego generated because then he wants to take the wheel.
I mean, it can be a driving factor, right? So like, just to be clear, this is a driving factor. A lot of people are successful based on their egos. Yeah. But if you're trying to get away from that and get to baseline so that you can actually start manifesting and driving more, you need to get off the ego bus. And again, if you don't need the ego, who are you without the ego? How happy are yourself without the ego, without this fire telling you that you need to do this, you need to consume this, you need to have this? How do you feel when you put the ego on the shelf and you just focus on who you are innately at your core?
Oh yeah.
So there is a way to harness.
No, bro, that's scary.
Some people can harness the ego and drive, right? And they can go build whatever it is that they want to build.
Yeah.
And then
phallic
towards the end,
monuments. Yeah.
They may, like you were saying before, be super unhappy. And so then they look back and they go, what am I doing with my life? How do I find happiness? I met this guy once and he had everything. So grumpy. He just was miserable.
Damn.
The grumpiest guy, old, grumpy, crotchety, had everything that he ever wanted. And he never got to experience and live life on his terms because he was following the ego so hard. I mean, it's like this idea when you talk to people on their deathbed, what do you regret? It's not like working more, working harder. It's usually around connection and people and so a lost love, let's say. But if you're living life according to the terms that feel authentic to you, then you don't have those regrets later.
I'm like gobsmacked. I'm like speechless. Yeah. Like, what would my goal even be without my ego? Because my goals are, I want to get there in a way that makes me feel good. I've gotten to that place, but they're definitely still highly vain.
So give me one example of a goal.
Yeah. Like, I want to be like a billionaire.
Why do you want to be a billionaire?
I literally don't know.
Okay, so
I want to have so much money, I don't have to worry about it. I don't ever think about it.
You want financial security. Why do you need financial security?
Why do I need financial security? Yeah, I like not having to think about money. Like I don't like worrying about it. So when I have
financial security give to you?
Can you ask me like I'm 5?
So if you have $1 million, if you have $1 billion,
okay,
let's give you an extreme number.
Yeah.
You have $1 billion. Now, what do you do?
Like what problem is that removing for me?
What would you do in your day to day if I gave you $1 billion today?
I'd probably just make videos and podcasts and like hang out and play video games and go to dinner a lot.
Do you think you would have purpose?
I would share a message of helping others escape the matrix and like liberate themselves and get financial freedom. So I think that would be my
What
purpose.
if you,
Which essentially I can do now without the same level of validation a billionaire would have.
But what if I gifted you $1 billion? You didn't earn it. You just got it.
I would take it.
I'm not saying you wouldn't.
Like, I want that. I accept. I'm a gracious receiver. Thank you.
Yeah. So you have the $1 billion.
Okay, I got the bill.
It's been transferred to your bank account.
Okay.
And now what? Like, I guess why I'm asking this question. So if you can figure out what is the ego driver, nail it down, like look at it from the top of what you're saying. I want $1 billion. $1 billion to me says financial security. Financial security to me says freedom. Freedom says the ability to operate however you want to operate. This freedom component. So then that to me also says, oh, following your passion or something along those lines. So what is the thing that makes you passionate? What makes you excited and happy? What is the thing that you would do if you had the freedom to do whatever you wanted?
So if we can imagine a scenario where the ego is fully satiated, then we can remove the ego from the thought experiment and go, now what? Now that the ego's satisfied, now what do you do?
Yeah. And if you can understand what it is that makes you tick, that makes you passionate, that gets you excited, then you can start to explore that avenue, because that avenue is probably the fastest way to get to the money that you're looking for.
That's the crazy thing too. It's removing control. I've gotten better at it, and I really think just kind of talking and externally processing this with you, the money thing's not really my issue because I'm fine with money. I know that is something that I do need to work towards so I don't get $1 billion and still feel like I have a black hole for money in my heart. But this idea around patience, that's my real issue. I'm so fucking impatient. My impatience is what's creating the stress, which is making me think I want more money now.
Yeah,
not the other way around.
And you're impatient because you're controlling and you're not relinquishing control to the universe and allowing
How do you
things
do
to
that?
happen.
How do you do that?
You have to just accept life. You have to accept that right now we are here and we are sitting and we're together and this is all that matters right now, this present moment.
How do you balance that with, I know if I work harder, I can get ahead faster, or I know I have to do these things?
Because I don't know that. You're assuming that.
So how do you balance the needing to do work and the just allowing?
Well, great question, because you do need balance.
Yeah.
You have to, obviously there has to be a forward trajectory if you're going to create things.
Okay.
I don't have all the answers to this. I can just go off my personal experience. I think, again, super happy with myself. I've connected into myself. I know who I am. So when I know who I am, I know what I'm capable of, and I know what makes me happy, and I know what makes me tick. And so then I can start to work to my strengths as opposed to working against them. I was in the corporate world like a salmon swimming upstream, so miserable.
It's a great analogy, yeah.
Hating it, hating everything about it, hating the people, hating the idea of sending an email when there's people with real problems in the world, like getting mad about things that are just so dumb, and getting ticked off by somebody's response to my response or the way someone's treated me. This doesn't matter. This isn't adding value to my life, right?
Yeah.
What was adding value to my life? Working with clients, helping people change their lives, getting stories from people when their lives had actually changed me.
That is awesome. Yeah.
I got that. I mean, I guess I am getting validation, but I'm like, oh, the work I'm doing actually is impacting people's lives for something better. And there's more here than what I was told from my parents or society. And so all of this is really coming back down to, you have to get to know, I think you have to get to know who you are. You have to be okay with who you are. You have to be comfortable in who you are. You have to make sure your frequency can be at least in baseline. And then you can understand and unpack the things that make you excited. Like when I think about what makes me excited, I don't necessarily need to make money off of them, but I can still enjoy them. Like plants. I love plants so much. I'm not trying to be a botanist.
So, okay. And I was going to ask you a question, but I think you kind of answered it, but I'm going to phrase it how I took it. So there's an inflection point where I was going to ask you, what's the balance point of being like fully like, oh, I'm not feeling like working today. Obviously, you're still you need to work, but how much work do you do? Do you get to a point where you push yourself a little, and then when you start to feel bad, you go, okay, I'm done for the day? Is that kind of that exertion
there
point
is
where you know
a drop off.
this is diminishing return, and it's also negatively impacting my frequency or my mindset?
Yeah, I'm very in tune with myself. So usually I can tell when my energy is dipping. Last week when we did our podcast, we wanted to do another one. I remember I told you my energy is getting low. I just can't keep doing it.
Yeah.
That is just conscious awareness that I've learned over time. Sorry, what was the other question?
Yeah, it's just basically like, what's the inflection point?
Oh,
As someone who maybe limitly believes that, and I'm going to tell this quick story super quick, which will relate back. So there's this, it's a parable. So this martial arts student goes to the master and he goes, how long will it take me to become a master? And the master goes, 10 years. And the guy goes, okay, well, I'll work twice as hard. I'll come in every day. I'll be your best student. I'll give 110% effort. Then how long will it take? And the master goes, 20 years. And I think the parable there is really about like overworking doesn't equal success. There's burnout. You're not protecting like your mindset. There's so many factors in there that, like that doesn't necessarily mean you get ahead faster, because is it productive work? Are you burning yourself out? Then you're just doing shitty work all the time. So again, yeah, my question to you is, at what inflection point do you go, this isn't serving me? I can pause on the work and be more mindful of the feeling.
So I was listening to the Kathy Heller podcast a couple of days ago, and she was interviewing this man. I forgot his name, but apparently he's really big in the business world. And he was talking about his children, and someone had asked one of his kids a question, and basically the outcome was, your kids aren't going to remember all the times you played with them, but they are going to remember all the nights that you worked extra. And I thought that was so interesting, because I know so many people when my old corporate job that pushed their families off to the side, if you will, and they were so focused on the grind and the drive, and we need to work harder, and they'd be in the office all the time. And the kids probably aren't remembering the 20 times that you showed up, but they are remembering like the 5 times that were important to them that you didn't show up. So when you're talking about working harder and what the motivation is, I think the important thing is balance. Is my life balanced? I need to work hard, yes, but I also need to rest. Our bodies force us to sleep every day because it's important. Recovery is super important. If you don't believe it, then don't go to bed for a couple days. Call me when you're going nuts.
Peripheral hallucinations. Yeah.
100%. Rest is important. So I'm saying all of this because balance is imperative to a successful life. And there are moments where you can't always have balance, but going back to this idea of taking the average of all of it, are you finding the average? Some days I don't want to do things, and some days I want to do a lot of things, and that's okay. If at the end of the week I can look back and say, did I work for majority of the time I was supposed to work? Yes, actually I did more than I was supposed to. All right, I feel pretty good about that. I'm going to let myself relax a little bit today. I'm going to fuck around and find out. It's okay. If you're not sure if you're able to have balance in life, or if you're not working hard enough or working too hard, I would say zoom out. What did the last 24 hours look like? What did the last 7 days look like? What did the last month look like? Did you show up? If you didn't show up for yourself, then you can't expect other people to show up for you. So there's a lot of reframing here. I think you could reflect on, who am I? How am I showing up? Am I happy with how I'm showing up? Am I proud of the way that I'm showing up? Would I want to brag about the way that I'm showing up? The way I want to brag about how wonderful I am? Might be a good barometer.
That's a really good point. There's definitely this day-to-day thing where it's like, yesterday I recorded a YouTube video for my channel, and I was like, today I'm going to make 3 YouTube videos. I've never made 3 in a day before, mind you. Like, today's the day. And I made 1, and then I felt guilty the rest of the day because I didn't make the other 2. But it's like, I accomplished everything I needed to accomplish for YouTube for that week, but I still felt bad about it. And so I think a lot of it is this preconceived notion that I'm creating for myself. And I know that a lot of people out there listening have the same thing. Well, if I just work harder, if I did those 3 that day, but like the 2 that I begrudgingly didn't want to do, maybe they would have sucked.
Probably.
You know what I mean? But
yeah, because your energy is not into it. Back to the frequency of what this is. you were probably going to be operating at a low vibration. They wouldn't have done well. Then you would have gotten mad. Then the next time you go to do 3 videos, well, the last 3 weren't good. You know, you are all of a sudden in a grumpy mood. Right. You're not going to want to do it. It's not going to be a motivating factor. But you did 1. You met like the goal was 1. 3 was extra credit, if you will. So you met the goal, and you should be happy with that.
What do you think about this hustle culture then, though? Like, I love Hermosi, but I'm constantly wrestling with this hustle culture. Gary Vee, if I just work harder, I'll get there faster. And then my desire to be happy.
They are doing things they love. This is the key that nobody pays attention to. Gary Vee loves what he does. It's very apparent he loves what he does. Hermosi also has said it multiple times. He loves what he does. So they've figured out the thing that makes them happy, and that's why they're so successful at it. And other people that are trying to mirror them, maybe those other people don't have the same drive because they don't have the same goals and they don't have the same validation that Hermosi's getting when he buys another business. Like, that is what he said. He doesn't like to go on vacation. He does it for his employees because he just wants to keep going. That's part of who he is. So if you are not a Hermosi and you haven't figured out your passion, or you don't have the same drive as him, you can't try and turn into him. This is like a zebra trying to be a horse, you know, or a giraffe trying to be a bunny rabbit. They're not. They're different creatures. And so if you're a different creature, that's okay. I'm not trying to work 1,000,000 hours like Hermosi, but I also have a little bit of that cuckoo in my brain where I want to keep going, and I have this internal drive. I don't need someone pushing me to move forward. I can create on my own. I don't need that. But not everybody has that, and that's okay. So if that's not your strength, then you're looking up to the wrong role model.
Do you think it's one thing you said that really struck me was essentially they get to operate in their zone of genius all day long. And so it's easy for them to quote unquote grind because they love, and I'm extrapolating this in my mind as you're talking, because they've got all these people that do all the shit they don't like to do. So they just get to, like, Gary Vee just gets to like yell into a podcast microphone all day and be like, I'm Gary Vee.
Well, you don't know that. Maybe he liked the come up part. You actually don't know. You're assuming.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I'm thinking it's one of 2 things. It's either, is it because people haven't identified their zone of genius or their thing that's so those are my 2 questions. It was, is it some people just love to grind, or is it they found their zone of genius so it's easy to grind?
It could be both. It could be
either or. Okay.
We're all so different, Joe.
Yeah.
You're trying to categorize these people and put them in a box. You can't put people in a box. We're so different. We're so complex.
It is easy to just be like, they're the hustle people guys. Yeah. Here are the attraction guys.
And we can say that. They are the hustle people guys.
Yeah.
But we don't know what goes behind that.
True.
Maybe Hermosi meditates 6 hours a day and he's released all of his blocks around money, and that's why they can all come in so
I wonder if he meditates. I could see him meditating.
Yeah. And maybe he doesn't. Maybe I'm just making this up. Yeah. I'm just saying we don't know. We only see what they allow us to see. They're in control about what they're sharing and not sharing. True. So we don't know what the other side of it looks like.
That's a good call out. Man, this has been super insightful. So I feel like I just had a really good therapy session. So thank you.
You're welcome. You know what? We never did our question. If you were a fast food chain, what fast food chain would you be?
Oh, that's so good. My immediate thought was Chick-fil-A. Actually, it was my second thought. My first thought was Subway, and I immediately said no. Chick-fil-A. Although I love Taco Bell. Final answer, Chick-fil-A.
I also love Taco Bell. Chick-fil-A because it's the healthiest one, I guess. Oh,
and the highest quality. But Taco Bell I love the most.
Yeah.
But I want to be perceived as Chick-fil-A. But maybe I am Taco Bell.
I'm a little Taco Bell too.
So what is yours?
My initial thought was Taco Bell because I think it's from Mexico, right? Is it technically supposed to be Mexican?
I mean, it's Mexican. It's loosely inspired by Mexican
I've always wanted to be south of the border, but I'm not.
Like live in South America or Mexico?
I love Mexico. I've been to Mexico so many times. Yeah. I can't even count anymore.
I love Mexico. I used to go there as a kid with my folks. It was the first time I ever got drunk. Senor Frogs.
Oh, that makes sense.
Mazatlan, Mexico. That was when the song "You Can Do It, Put Your Back Into It" was hot. And it was me. And you know when you're young and you get drunk, your like level of no shame is at a higher degree. Mm. So it's me and my best friend from high school, Tim. And they had a 3-tier stage. And we're on the top tier, like dancing. And like I'm like doing like these. It was crazy. And like we're like 15. Everyone else is like in college. And it was a good time.
Good for you.
We saw boobs.
big day.
Well, yeah, the Senior Frogs is, I believe, Mardi Gras themed year round. So shout out to Senior Frogs. I'm sure they've been closed down from lawsuits by now.
Oh yeah, Senior Frogs. Yeah,
they're probably still open. Let's be realistic.
I'm sure there's one in Cancun or something.
For sure.
But I think I'd be Dairy Queen.
Dairy Queen.
Because I love ice cream. I love ice cream. Dairy Queen, I love you.
What's your favorite Dairy Queen item?
So glad you asked. Like this summer, there's this one bar my guy friends like to go to. Whenever we go to that bar, I will leave and go to Dairy Queen because it's like a half a block down. And then I'll come back with my ice cream.
What do you get?
I'm a big fan of an Oreo Blizzard, just classic.
Oh, wow.
But I also love a peanut buster.
What's a peanut buster?
It's like soft serve, and then there's some peanuts and chocolate.
Oh, you're like rocking the old school, like the OG items there.
Yeah.
I feel like a peanut buster's probably been around since like 1930.
Yeah, my mom always got it.
The peanut buster. That makes sense because then that was from her childhood.
Yeah.
Dude, they got those cheesecake blizzards are outrageous.
Oh, see, I would try that.
Oh, they're so good. They almost have too many items. It's overwhelming.
I get very overwhelmed. Then I end up just going to the two things I like.
That's the best way to go. There's a Dairy Queen right by where I live, and I've been there once.
Thank God there's not one here because I would go all the time.
That's why I don't go, because it feels like such an aggressive indulgence that I feel like a piece of shit. But I think I've been there, like went on there on like a date once.
Oh, that's
It was
cute.
good though. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll go on a date to Dairy Queen.
Dairy Queen. Would you eat the food ever? Or are you just strictly ice cream there?
I think I have, but I don't remember.
Why do they even serve food?
I think this came because my dad and we used to take bike rides along the Fox River, and from our house we'd ride our bikes to this Dairy Queen.
Yeah.
And then we'd have Dairy Queen, we'd have probably food sometimes and whatever, and then go back. So I'm assuming the original Dairy Queen probably just had food and a little bit of ice cream, and then ice cream took over. Yeah,
the ice cream is where it's at. And what a nice thing to do with your dad also, like go getting ice cream with your. And then also, it's really funny to combine exercise with insanely high calorie food. Yep. Oh, okay. So it was like
it was worth
sweet treat.
Yeah,
we earned it. We earned it, Dad.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, is it what you'd say when you got there?
I mean, I'm sure my dad did. My dad, he liked to overindulge, so he's probably always trying to earn things. You know?
I remember I worked with this girl. I worked at a bank. It was one of my first jobs, a bank teller. I was in I don't remember how old I was, but and she was a little heavy, and her and her friend would like go to the Planet Fitness and do 20 minutes on the Stairmaster and then order like a pasta bake from Pizza Hut and like mow the whole thing down and be like, we burn these calories. Like, dude, you went like inverse the other way by like 100x.
Well, thank God she was doing something then.
At least she was doing something. Yeah, it was definitely not a good strategy, but I can see I've done stuff like that before. They're like, I worked out today. I can have extra Taco Bell.
Yeah, or I'll be like, I didn't work out today, but I'm still gonna get.
Dude, I'm also on a cut right now, and I have 4 more pounds to go, and I haven't had Taco Bell in a long time. It's
good for you.
It took a lot of self control, but yeah,
I eat so clean. I never have Taco Bell.
Yeah, you're doing it up like macro style. Like I've never done that, and I really should. I think I'd be a lot bigger. Just so everyone knows, I would be huge.
Well, maybe it depends on what your gains are. It doesn't matter. This is not a workout podcast. It could be though.
It could be, yeah. All right, guys, listen, thank you so much for watching. If you have a funny question for us, leave it in the comments. Let us know your thoughts on what areas in your life that you want to move out of needing into being grateful for. And then make sure that you like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.
Bye.